Have you ever wondered why the Bible, a book of faith and hope, dedicates entire pages to describing such a terrifying sea monster? Leviathan isn't just another obscure character in the scriptures. He represents the very primordial chaos that challenges divine order. While traditional theologians try to soften his existence as merely symbolic, archaeological discoveries from 1928 revealed Ugaritic texts mentioning a similar being called Leviathan, proving that this seven-headed creature transcended cultures and millennia. Surprisingly, what our ancestors feared as an invincible monster, we now calmly sail out to photograph, because in modern Hebrew, Leviathan simply means whale. This semantic shift reveals something profound about our spiritual and intellectual evolution. Prepare for a fascinating journey through the three great myths connecting the biblical Leviathan to Babylonian Tiamat and Canaanite Leviathan, unveiling ancestral knowledge few have access to, but which will completely transform your understanding of the scriptures and the challenges you face daily. In the depths of antiquity, among the most impressive accounts that have reached our days, stands the figure of Leviathan, a creature of colossal proportions and terrifying aspect, described with 7 heads, armor impenetrable to the sharpest spears, and the ability to breathe fire. This sea monster wasn't something just anyone could face, you know? In 1928, archaeologists were astounded when they discovered Ugaritic texts mentioning a similar creature called Leviathan, confirming that this primordial fear transcended cultures. The symbolism of the 7 heads wasn't chosen randomly. My friend, in ancient numerology, the number 7 carried the idea of totality and perfection, in this case, perfection directed toward destruction and chaos. It's as if today someone said they faced 7 problems at once to indicate they're overwhelmed. Leviathan represented that force of nature against which no human could fight alone, similar to our deepest fears that seem to have multiple heads attacking from all sides. When we observe the 3 great myths that permeate antiquity, the cosmic struggle in the Bible, the confrontation between Marduk and Tiamat in Babylonian mythology, and Baal's battle against Leviathan in Canaanite texts, we notice a recurring pattern: the eternal battle between order and chaos. It's fascinating to think that our ancestors, even without knowing each other, developed such similar narratives. If you've ever felt yourself fighting against chaos in your own life, whether organizing your home or facing problems at work, you're reliving, in a way, this primordial conflict that fascinated entire civilizations. The archaeological excavations of 1928 brought to light Ugaritic texts that left scholars' jaw-dropped. There was mention of a sea monster called Leviathan, with characteristics astonishingly similar to the biblical Leviathan. It's as if you discovered your neighbor tells the same story as your grandfather, but with small variations. These ancient scrolls describe the god Baal in direct confrontation with this multi-headed creature, establishing a narrative that echoed across various Middle Eastern cultures. The fascinating thing is to realize how these 3 great myths, Babylonian, Canaanite, and Hebrew, converge to the same narrative structure. A deity representing cosmic order faces a sea monster that personifies primordial chaos. When we read about Marduk defeating Tiamat in the Babylonian epic Enuma Elish, or Baal against Leviathan in the Ugaritic texts, we are essentially before the same story told in different languages and contexts. To better understand these connections, try reading Mircea Eliade's Myth and Reality, which masterfully explores these parallels. The recurrence of the number 7 in these ancient accounts is no mere coincidence. In Leviathan's 7 heads resides a powerful symbolism that crosses cultures. When we think of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, or the 7 days of the week, we see how this number carried an idea of completeness and perfection. In the case of the sea monster, its 7 heads represented destructive power in its most complete and terrifying form. If you notice well, even today we use expressions like, "I'm dealing with 1,000 problems," to indicate a chaotic situation. Our ancestors would say, "I'm facing a Leviathan." It's fascinating to observe how words change over time, isn't it? The term Leviathan, which once made our ancestors tremble with fear imagining a 7-headed sea monster, has undergone a significant semantic change. In modern Hebrew, believe it or not, the word Leviathan is simply the common term for whale. It's as if, a few centuries from now, our movie dragons became just lizards in everyday language, Quite a transformation. This evolution shows us how humanity has gradually demystified the natural world. In 1928, when those Ugaritic texts were discovered mentioning the Leviathan monster, scholars already understood this transition from myth to scientific knowledge. Just imagine. Our ancestors, upon seeing enormous whales emerging from the waves or humpbacks leaping, probably contributed to these legends of colossal creatures. The unknown has always been fertile ground for our imagination to create terrible monsters. The three great myths involving giant marine creatures, be they from Babylon, Canaan, or Israel, document not only the ancestral fear of the unknown, but also our attempt to make sense of the world. When today we speak of facing personal leviathans, we're metaphorically using a concept that has gone through centuries of transformation. The next time you visit an aquarium and see a whale, remember, for someone from the distant past, that creature could very well be the fearsome seven-headed monster that challenged the gods themselves. In the majestic book of Job, Leviathan emerges as the supreme example of nature's untamable power, a creature with impenetrable armor against which no human weapon prevails. Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? The sacred text questions, highlighting the absolute invulnerability of this being. In 1928, when archaeologists discovered Ugaritic texts mentioning Leviathan, it became evident that this creature transcended cultural boundaries, personifying those forces that make us feel small and powerless before the vastness of the universe. Psalm 74 presents an even deeper perspective when it declares, "You broke the heads of Leviathan." This passage reveals how the creature's seven heads, a symbol of complete destructive power, are subdued by divine power. It's fascinating to think that, as you fight your personal leviathans, be they insecurities or seemingly insurmountable challenges, you're reliving this millennial archetype. To face your own internal monsters, try the fragmentation technique. Divide large problems into smaller heads and conquer them one by one. Among the three great myths that permeate the ancient Middle East, Marduk's combat against Tiamat, Baal's battle against Leviathan, and God subduing Leviathan, we find the same fundamental structure: cosmic order triumphing over primordial chaos. When the biblical text describes Leviathan's scales, so closely joined that no air can come between them, it offers us a powerful metaphor about seemingly impenetrable obstacles. The next time you face a situation that seems hopeless, remember, even Leviathan, in all his invincibility, met his equal, teaching us that every challenge, however formidable it may seem, can be overcome. In the fascinating panorama of ancient mythology, Leviathan stands out as the perfect incarnation of primordial chaos, that disordered force threatening to swallow the ordered creation. When we look at Canaanite myths, we find Baal facing Leviathan with fierce determination, while in Babylon, Marduk confronts the fearsome Tiamat. In 1928, excavations that revealed Ugaritic texts confirmed what many scholars already suspected. These are not isolated myths, but variations of the same fundamental story: the eternal struggle between order and chaos that resonates across cultures and ages. Leviathan's seven heads weren't chosen randomly. In ancient symbolism, the number 7 represented totality and completeness. Just imagine. A monster with 7 heads personifies chaos in its most complete and overwhelming form. It's as if our ancestors were saying, "This is absolute chaos, disorder in its maximum expression." When you organize your house after a chaotic week or establish a routine after a turbulent period, you're essentially recreating this primordial myth, imposing order where chaos once reigned. The three great myths involving aquatic monsters share a fascinating characteristic. They all happen at sea, the domain of the unknown and unpredictable. For ancient cultures, the ocean represented everything beyond human control: deep, mysterious, and potentially deadly. This semantic shift is revealing. Today, when facing uncertainties or chaotic situations, we can draw inspiration from these millennial narratives. Try, when feeling overwhelmed, to visualize your problem as a leviathan that can be tamed through organization and persistence, the same qualities that allowed ancient deities to triumph over primordial chaos. Leviathan's legacy remains alive and pulsating in our modern culture, manifesting in ways we might not notice at first glance. When we watch movies like How to Train Your Dragon or Game of Thrones, we are actually consuming contemporary versions of that ancient seven-headed creature that terrorized the seas. The semantic change occurring over the centuries transformed the biblical monster into various archetypes of cinematic villains, those seemingly invincible antagonists representing chaotic and destructive forces that the hero must face. In 1928, when those Ugaritic texts were discovered, few imagined that the concept of Leviathan would reach 21st century video games. But it's enough to play titles like God of War or Dark Souls to find final bosses that are direct heirs to that ancient sea serpent. The three great myths involving aquatic monsters, be they Tiamat, Litan, or Leviathan itself, provided the model for countless creatures in our modern stories. The next time you face a dragon in an RPG, remember, you're participating in a narrative tradition dating back millennia. The film industry, in particular, has embraced this symbolism with enthusiasm. Movies like The Hobbit present the dragon Smaug as a practically invulnerable creature, except for a single weak point, directly echoing the biblical description of Leviathan as having impenetrable armor. Even in disaster films, like The Day After Tomorrow, we can identify forces of nature portrayed as almost conscious entities that challenge humanity. To better appreciate these connections, try rewatching your favorite monster or natural disaster movies from this new perspective. You'll be surprised to realize how many modern Leviathans populate our collective imagination. The biblical narrative of Leviathan offers us a powerful metaphor for the personal challenges we face in our journey. Just as that seven-headed creature seemed invincible to human eyes, many of our problems may initially seem insurmountable, be it a seemingly unpayable debt, a deteriorated relationship, or a distant professional goal. In 1928, when archaeologists unearthed Ugaritic texts mentioning Litan, they were unveiling not just an ancient myth, but a timeless truth about the human condition. We all face monsters in our journey. The most inspiring, however, is to realize that even the fearsome Leviathan meets its match in the scriptures, a powerful reminder that there are no truly insurmountable challenges. When you feel paralyzed before a complex problem, try the 7 heads technique. Divide the challenge into smaller, manageable parts and face them one at a time. This method, inspired by the symbolism of the number 7 as complete strength, can transform even the most intimidating obstacles into manageable tasks. For example, a substantial debt can be divided into multiple payment goals, each representing a head of your personal Leviathan. The 3 great myths involving sea monsters share a unifying message: order eventually triumphs over chaos. Likewise, your life, however chaotic it may seem at certain moments, has the potential for organization and harmony. When we face a semantic change in our own narrative, transforming problems into opportunities and obstacles into steps, we are essentially taming our personal Leviathans. The next time you feel you're sinking before a challenge, remember, even the deepest waters can be navigated with the right vessel, built with determination, patience, and strategy. A fascinating chapter in Leviathan's history occurred when Alexandrian scholars created the Septuagint, the first Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. In this monumental work, Leviathan received a new name, Draken, a word that would give rise to our modern term, dragon. This semantic change was much more than a simple translation. It was a cultural bridge connecting Hebrew imagery to Greco-Roman legends. In 1928, when archaeologists discovered Ugaritic texts mentioning Litan, they could finally trace the complete lineage of this creature across various cultures and languages. Leviathan's 7 heads found perfect echo in Greek stories about the Hydra, another multi-headed creature representing chaos in animal form. It's impressive how these symbols resonate across time and space. If you're a fan of mythology or fantasy, try reading Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which masterfully explores these recurring patterns. Or, for a more accessible approach, compare dragon representations in different cultures, from the benevolent Chinese dragon to the destructive European wyvern, and you'll see how the Leviathan archetype transformed through the centuries. Among the 3 great myths that permeate our understanding of aquatic monsters, Leviathan's transformation into a dragon represents perhaps the most influential for Western culture. When we play Skyrim, facing dragons, or watch The Hobbit, fearing Smaug, we're unconsciously connected to that ancient sea serpent from Hebrew scriptures. To better appreciate this connection, observe how dragons in our culture are frequently associated with both fire and water, a duality that reflects their origins as Leviathan, the creature that breathed fire while inhabiting the depths of the sea. Our imagination continues to navigate the same mythical waters that inspired ancient storytellers. In 1651, English philosopher Thomas Hobbes revolutionized political thought by publishing his masterpiece Leviathan, appropriating the biblical monster's name to symbolize something completely new, the sovereign and absolute state. This remarkable semantic change transformed the ancient seven-headed sea serpent into a metaphor for centralized political power. Hobbes argued that without a strong state, his Leviathan, society would plunge into chaos, exactly as in the three ancient great myths, where the sea monster represented the primordial forces of disorder that needed to be tamed. Hobbes' choice wasn't accidental. He sought a powerful image that would capture both the fear and respect that his theory of the absolute state should inspire. In 1928, when archaeologists unearthed Ugaritic texts mentioning Leviathan, they inadvertently confirmed the genius of this appropriation. To better understand this political thought, try reading Machiavelli's The Prince, followed by Hobbes' Leviathan. You'll see how both discuss state power, but with radically different metaphors, reflecting their distinct eras and concerns. The symbolism of Leviathan's seven heads found in Hobbes' political theory a new interpretation, the different powers and institutions of the state unified under a single sovereign will. This vision profoundly influenced the development of theories about governance and authority in the following centuries. If you're interested in political science, compare Hobbes' ideas with more recent thinkers like John Rawls in A Theory of Justice. You'll notice how the same fundamental concern, the search for just social order, persists, even when the Leviathan metaphor is no longer explicitly invoked. The journey of this symbol, from the depths of ancient seas to the corridors of modern political power, demonstrates the enduring power of archetypes in shaping our understanding of the world. In the dark pages of Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, Leviathan resurfaces as one of the four crowned princes of hell, representing the water element and the depths of the human unconscious. This modern appropriation demonstrates the incredible adaptability of this millennial symbol. In 1928, when those Ugaritic texts were discovered mentioning Leviathan, few imagined that this monster would continue capturing human imagination in such diverse ways. Contemporary fascination with the seven-headed creature transcends established religions, infiltrating occult practices that seek to explore the primordial forces symbolized by the ancient sea monster. Pop culture has embraced Leviathan with particular enthusiasm, from series like Supernatural, where the creature appears as one of the main antagonists, to games like Final Fantasy, where we face bosses inspired by the biblical monster. This semantic change, transforming a religious symbol into mainstream entertainment, reflects our continued fascination with the primordial chaos that Leviathan represents. For those fond of these references, I recommend the documentary Religious Symbols in Pop Culture on Netflix, which masterfully explores how ancient archetypes are constantly reinvented by contemporary media. Among the three great myths involving colossal sea serpents, Leviathan has proven to be the most resilient in Western imagination. Its presence can be detected in everything from Marvel Comics, where Hydra clearly echoes the multi-headed monster, to H.P. Lovecraft's literature, whose cosmic horrors owe much to the biblical Leviathan's image. When you encounter tentacled or serpentine monsters in horror films or electronic games, you are witnessing the latest incarnation of that same being that terrorized the ancients. To better appreciate these connections, visit fantastic art exhibitions or participate in science fiction conventions. You'll be surprised how many times Leviathan, even if not explicitly named, continues swimming in the deep waters of our collective imagination. We've reached the end of our journey through the mythical depths of Leviathan, but not the end of the discoveries this symbol can provide in your life. What will you do with this ancestral knowledge now? The seven heads of the sea monster are not so different from the multiple challenges you face daily. Have you stopped to think about what your personal Leviathans are and how you can master them using the millennial strategy of dividing to conquer? What would be more transformative? Continuing to fear your monsters or learning from the texts of 1928 that even the most fearsome creatures can be understood and overcome? The semantic change that transformed the terrible Leviathan into a simple whale can inspire your own journey of demystifying the fears that paralyze you. Are you ready to dive deeper into this ocean of wisdom? Subscribe to the channel now, activate notifications, and embark on our next adventure through the 3 great myths of antiquity that continue to shape our understanding of the world. The knowledge we've shared here is just the surface of a deep sea of revelations awaiting you.